Hello, hello, welcome
Good
everyone. Good
afternoon.
afternoon. We are super excited. Welcome. I'm Roz Stutley, and this is my husband.
Grace Utley.
And we are team leaders for Keep the Fire Burning Marriage Ministry. And we're really excited because this year, something special is happening for Valentine's Day. And we're kicking it off with our Resilient Love message. We had an opportunity to do a marriage talks event last month. And this month, we wanted to feature and highlight a couple that has and represents resilient love. So we want to say welcome, Team Williams. Walter and Rachel Williams, my mom and my dad are in the house. And I'm so grateful that they are on this call and doing an interview with us to share a little bit about what it means for them to be a resilient couple. So first, just to give you a quick heads up, guess how many years Walter and Rachel have been married? Y'all want to tell them?
2 years.
How many?
42.
42 years. Oh my God. To God be the glory for 42 years. And don't they look awesome? If I do say so myself. So they're going to share a little bit with us about what it means to be a resilient couple. And so we have a few questions. We're going to do this in an interview style, and they're going to share, we're going to glean from them. So we're so grateful that you're joining in with this time. So Henry, you want to kick us off with,
Okay. So the one of the things that we definitely wanted to, you guys have been married for 42 years. Man, that's of course obviously 4 decades. So it's going way back. But I mean, I'm sure, well, for us, for couples, let us know exactly how long, or not how long, what drew you guys to each other?
Well, I started off, I think I was drawn to him first.
Oh.
I happened to spot him at his brother's church, and I thought, wow, he looks good.
Okay.
And did you know you were being spotted, Walter?
So, what happened was, I think this was shortly after if I'm not mistaken, it was shortly after Thanksgiving. And my brother and his wife came over, and we were talking about something entirely different. Some friends of ours, mutual friends of theirs and mine, somebody I had known for years and years, was about to get married.
Yeah.
And I remember I just casually mentioned something about her to them. And I said, and who is the person, I said, when I was at y'all's church, who was the person that was there in the prayer line, in the prayer circle? And my sister-in-law said, oh, Sister Clark, that's Sister Clark. I said, oh, okay, fine, she seems nice. And I didn't really think any more about it. And they went home, but later on they called me and said, we're gonna go out on Sunday. And she goes with us a lot of time. How would you like to just come along and go out with us that Sunday to have dinner? And I said, yeah, sure, fine. That's okay. We can go out. And we went out to a Polynesian restaurant on that Sunday afternoon.
Wow. Yeah. So a group date set
exactly.
up.
Yes.
Did you think at that point at all about marriage, or did you even envision that for each other at that stage and at that point?
I don't think I was thinking about marriage at that point. I definitely wanted to get married. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get, I had decided I wanted to get married. And in fact, I had even dated anybody for at least a year, maybe even, at least a year, over a year before I went out. And I decided that if a person wasn't saved, I wasn't even going to go out on a date with
Yeah.
them.
Amen.
Right.
And I said that I would get married if that's what God wanted. And a good name for the person would be Rachel.
Wait, so you already had in your mind the name?
The
Of
name,
it?
but I had never seen her though when I said that ever.
Wow.
The name that I like. I had always liked that name, and I also like the story of Rachel in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
Love it. Love it.
How did you guys feel on that first group date? That first group date. How were you guys feeling? During that time.
Well, I was a bit uncomfortable because I didn't know how to really interact, because I didn't know a whole lot about Walter. And of course, that was his brother and sister-in-law. So they knew everything about him, or
Yeah.
knew about him, but I was the outsider. But, and then my sister-in-law loved to play jokes. She was a jokester. So she was trying to trick me up with doing stuff that would be inappropriate at a place to eat, like taking like dirty water and stuff like that. So she thought it was very funny. And so I was already trying to be unnervous, but there were
Sure.
things to make me nervous.
Sure.
But I looked at Walter, and he didn't seem to be uncomfortable at all.
Wow.
So I was the one that was kind of nervous, because I was like the person that was the X factor.
So you're in your 20s about this time, both
Yes.
kind of in a place where, hey, we want to get married, waiting for that right person to come along, and then God allows your paths to intersect. And so you meet at church, and this is your context, this is your environment. At this point of, starting to date, growing in your relationship together, was it perfect? Like when you started dating, you started that courtship, and, God began to draw you even more together. Like, how was that experience for you?
Well, this was it wasn't really, I didn't see this as difficult at all. First of all, even when we went on the first date, I think before we ever went to the restaurant, my brother so I said, let's stop by the house. First of all, their house wasn't all that far
Correct.
from it. And we went to their house, and they were like, I don't know which one did it, him or her, but they said, we got something we need to do. So
Yes.
they left the house
Correct.
for a little while.
I forgot about that.
It wouldn't be like, so they wouldn't be like sitting up there watching you and all that kind of stuff, and you would have a chance to interact alone.
Yes.
And actually, before they even got back, we had already made a second date to
Yes.
go out.
Oh,
That is
wow.
true.
Okay, so things
Yeah.
are progressing.
Yeah.
So faith was really important to you. That was
yeah.
obviously a really core value for the two of you. What were some other core things that were really important to you as you were building this relationship, or either you both brought to the table, or either of you brought to the table and into your relationship? What were some really core values that were important?
Well, faith wasn't just important. Faith was primary.
Yeah.
It outweighed everything else. And it outweighed everything else by a lot, really.
Oh, yes.
Another thing that was important for me was that the person had to be real.
Yes.
Now, I've been in church before that, and I knew people, and every woman wanted to get married. And
Yes.
just because they said they were saved and all that kind of stuff didn't actually mean a lot to
There you
me.
go.
Because I saw those games that all of a sudden I'm so holy and all that stuff, but
Yes.
it wasn't really that real. For me, it had to be people that going to church and things like that wasn't born out of duty. It wasn't born out of, is it something that I've always done? It had to be something that was personal.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was very important to me, extremely important to me, is that the person had to be able to think. And by that, I mean that you had to be able to not just look at something and say, this is the way it's always been. It had to be a person that could actually say why.
Yeah.
It was always important to me for a person to be able to say why and answer the question why to whatever situation they were in.
Got it.
That's good.
I love that.
Great.
So, and what about you, Mom? What were some of the qualities that really resonated for you in your relationship and, with Dad as well?
Faith, of course, as that's number one. A call to what we believe and what the Bible says, and they have to align. And also just a sense of family. And I'm from a big family. Then I found out Walter's from a big family. So that family unit and how you interact with your family, how you respect your family members, your mother, your father, all of those kind of things, because those are values that I had learned from my mother. And so I wanted that same sort of thing to be with the person that I was going to have a very close relationship with. And of course, if I'm going to marry that person, how do they feel about the same thing? How I would have to know it, that you feel the same way I feel about family and the family values and respect and loyalty.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
So that definitely was the love connection.
Love connection.
Definitely the love connection, and that's great. So take us fast forward just a tad, because we have also an audience that they are married folk who have just gotten married, but also been married for maybe 5 years. So kind of really the newly married. How was that experience for you all in the first 2 years of your marriage?
Yeah. Or
early years, yeah.
I'll start it off. We were doing great. Walter had gotten a new job, and it was like, wow, we had plans for all we were going to do with the money, because this was going to be more money. Wow, we were just so excited. And then it came to a screeching halt. Everything changed in like what, 6 or 7 months. And we went to Ford.
It was that long.
And we went to where Walter was without a job for like almost 2 years.
Wow.
And so it was a test of how we were going to be able to make it as not only a newlywed couple, but just day-to-day things that you do. And it tested us to the point where we found out so much about each other, how we could stand together. So we knew that it was us against the world, basically, because we stood together and we prayed about it. Of course, it was like, what's going on? We made all the right moves. You want to get a better job. We prayed about a better job, and Walter got the better job, and then it ended. But we learned a lot about each other, and of course, the subject matter, resilient faith, also, because it taught us how to trust one another and trust that God was in the plan and would always take care of us.
But this happened. All kinds of things happened, and this happened. I lost a job through no fault of my own. It was a job through racism. Basically, I got a job that no Black person was hardly ever was there or anything like that. Then I lost it. Yeah. But you also understand that in those early years like that too, you stay together, and there's faith, and all those things happen too. But don't think there was arguments, there was tension,
oh yeah,
and there was a lot of it.
Oh yeah.
that was going on during those times that you had to get through. And that was all kinds of things. Some of it was probably because of a situation that was affecting us financially. Other parts of it is because that you have two people that no matter how much you think you know about somebody and all of that stuff, that there are all kinds of things you have to learn and get through.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that,
Yes.
Mr. Williams. We definitely appreciate that. So you mentioned, and I'm glad you were very transparent, very real, because that's, and then of course you all know in this day and age, we definitely need couples who have been through the fire, been through
Yeah.
and overcome, and now we can share with others.
And I love that racism was highlighted too,
Mhm.
because how appropriate also, this is Black History Month. And you were dating and you got married in the 70s. Like, we're living in a different time now. In some ways, we still have obviously things that we're dealing with, but Dad, being a Black man, was dealing with some serious stuff, work related, racism head on, during the time when you first got married. And so grateful to hear that you were able to endure that together. I love how you said it was us against the world. It was us. We were going to be resilient together.
And so you guys raising a family, while raising a family, what are some key principles that helped you remain resilient during those years of raising a family, while raising a family?
I'll start this one off as well. Now, I have daddy's girls. And I'm saying that because it's as if a lot of times I would feel like, okay, no matter what I tell them to do, they're going to run to daddy because daddy's going to always take their side. And so, I learned with raising a family that you have to look at, and this is with relationships, period, people as to who they actually are. You can't imagine that there's something that they're not. Once I realized that they were daddy's girls, and it has not changed. 42 years later, they're still daddy's girls. So I know that, and I know how to deal with dealing with people as individuals, because no two people are alike. Children are different. Once you realize that and you bring in up a family, you speak to where people are, where you want them to go, and how you want them to get there. And so I learned early on from other people, because it takes a village. I learned from people at church, my own mother, some things I didn't want to do that my mother did, but I also figured out why she did those things, because a lot of times you need to just do tough love. So it was
We were
just
talking about that earlier.
you learn. It was trial and error for me, I know, and I know Walter and I've talked about that. You don't get a book, a handbook as do this, do that, and the other. It's on the job training, and so a lot of it was just figuring out the best thing that we wanted to do and knowing how we wanted to raise God-fearing children and be God-fearing parents.
One of the things I think you have to do is you have to learn from mistakes.
Yes.
Because you make mistakes.
Oh, yes.
And as you're going through and you're doing certain things, there were certain things I never wanted to do because I saw certain things that my parents did. For instance, old school parents like that, there was always a situation where the kids was always wrong.
Yeah.
And the adult was always right. And I vowed when I was growing up that I was never going to think that way, because there was so many times as a child that the adult was dead wrong.
Oh, yes.
And unfair.
Yes.
And as a kid, there was nothing I could do about that because the adult was wrong. So I never had the approach that the adult was always right. I knew that probably a lot of times they would be, and maybe even the majority of the time or most of the time. And sometimes you was going to do things that was entirely wrong. And once you do something that's wrong and you admit that it was wrong, to nobody but yourself even, you can correct that mistake by not doing that again. So a lot of the stuff, I think, was by trial and error, as Rachel said. You just go ahead and you do the best you can, and you learn.
You
You
learn.
have to learn as you go, because perfection does not just happen right away. It may never happen, but even doing really good don't necessarily happen right away. You have to
True.
learn some things. And above everything else, as in anything that you do in marriage, if it's the right kind, it's got to be God-centered.
Oh, yes.
And you got to look to God to see what you should do next.
You know what? Having grown up with obviously the two of you, I appreciate and admire the grind that you did. Like, I can go back in my mind and I remember you dropping us at daycare or school, and then you got to go to work, and then you got to come home, and then you come to my school play, you doing something.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And you, I don't know when you went to bed, but then you wake up the next morning, you do it again, and you do it again, and you did it again, and you did it year after year and after year. Like, how did you do that daily grind? Because obviously, those of us in this 21st century, 2021, some of us are just starting that family grind, or we're just starting, or we're in our careers and we're trying to grow in careers, and it's that career grind and family grind and ministry grind. Like, talk to us a little bit about how you successfully navigated that. What?
It was hard. Remember,
that's real. It is hard. Okay, so that's good to hear. Like, it's hard.
It's hard. You just mentioned dropping off at daycare and coming to plays and stuff. But remember, during that time also, Rachel was a Sunday school teacher, and she was the chair lady, the district chair lady of the YPWW, which in our church was Young People's Willing Workers. I was a Sunday school superintendent locally, but later on I became a district Sunday school superintendent. One of the churches that I went that was in our district was in Batavia, Illinois.
Oh,
and
wow.
I can remember dropping Rachel off at Sunday school and me going to Batavia to be in Sunday school with them, then coming back to our church. Remember also, I became the assistant pastor of the church. So I also was preaching deliverance service. I only did that once a month, but then I would preach on the Men's Day service. Then I was on all the other committees that went on, and I worked within the district with the state, the guy that was in charge of the state. And so I was going to things like that as well.
I'm exhausted hearing about all these titles. I'm exhausted.
And at one point,
a lot of mileage too.
And at one point, I was going to school too at night. I would pick Rachel up at work, leave the car with her. I would get on the L, go to school after working on, and I would get back home at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock that night.
And get up and do it all over again the next day.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just doing what you have to do, and great, and thankfully a lot of this stuff, then they're staying into some of the stuff within after a year or something like that. So it wasn't everything going on all the time.
So you still were able to. So you were still able to prioritize your marriage, your relationship, because obviously when we commit to these other responsibilities, or we're raising a family, those things pull at us. How do you still have energy for your spouse and energy to nurture the two of you? So, you said it was hard, and I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I don't think we think that it should be hard, or we feel guilty because it is hard. and but you have to keep going and work at it together, and it's trial and error. So there isn't a book written, it's going to be perfect and it's going to all go like this. So now I got to learn, and I got to make mistakes and learn and grow together. That can be a lot, and it can be overwhelming for couples. So
it can be. It can be, and some of it, there are certain things that if I had to go back and do it over again, I probably wouldn't do. There are certain things that probably should have been left out, that you should have set aside. And at times, there are times that certain things could suffer because of that. And you have to try to make it up after that. But again, that's all a part of it.
Yes.
Because if you make a mistake, if something don't work out right, maybe you didn't do things exactly the way you should. Fixing that can sometimes be the building blocks for making things more successful.
Correct.
It seems like perhaps the culture during that time, if you went through something, you stuck it out.
You worked it out.
You worked it out. Whereas now you go through something, let's call it quits. But you guys, it's a resilient love. Speaking of resilient, our theme, of course, we said resilient love endures trial, tragedy, disappointment, loss. Can you tell us about a time where you didn't feel perhaps in love or even like, and what happened, what helped you to hold on and to remain married?
Well, I don't think I've ever felt not in love or not in like, because I think if you say, have I ever felt disappointed or hurt or sad? Yes, I've had those feelings, but I've always felt in love, because I look at it as a whole person. This is a person here. He's got all kinds of stuff going on, stuff that I don't understand sometimes, but I'm not going to say I'm not in love anymore. I don't understand. I don't, I get angry, I'm upset, and I might have to step away and say, okay, let me cool down. Let me not just talk right now. And then I have such respect for him that I don't want to hurt him. So a lot of times it's not that perhaps, and I know sometimes we use love kind of about a lot of things. I love this bag of potato chips, or I love, and we don't really mean that. But so I have gotten discouraged about things when things wasn't going a certain way, or I've been real sad or wondering, like worried. And I know perhaps some saints may not get worried, but there was an instance when I felt like, Lord, what am I going to do? And this was when Walter got very, very sick. This was 1999, and I wasn't sure he was going to live. And then I'm thinking in my mind, Lord, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that?
Yeah.
So it was more of, I was scared, really, just scared. What's going to be my next steps? Yeah. But I can't say that I've ever been not in love or not in like. I've always been in love, and I think I'm in love more now than I was in 1978.
Wow. And
because now I've got a full view of somebody. When you first meet someone, you don't really know them. You're learning. But I mean, I'm sure there are more things to learn, but I know enough now to have a firm foundation and say, I truly love this person, who he is. So yeah, I've had some disappointments, but I've never been not in love.
Good.
I think that the thing that you have to that maybe is more of language. Because if you think of being in love, it's an ongoing thing.
Correct.
It's something that's going on all the time. But in while it's going on, there can be moments that when it's not the same.
Hmm.
So I can say that maybe there's never been a time when I wasn't in love that I thought that, oh, I don't love this person out. There may have been moments where you think, I don't know if I want to do this, maybe this ain't worth it. But it's only a moment like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the difference between moments and not being in love is when the person that says, I'm not in love with this person anymore, and it goes on.
Correct.
It's a straight line where it goes. It's not just a bump that you encounter and then it's over after a day, or even if it's. I've known some people maybe they feel that way a week.
Yeah.
But it's not like some people that is something that's going on as a constant in their life.
Yeah.
And that's when there's a problem. A bump in the road is, but you have to recognize it as such.
Yeah.
And if you recognize it as such, one of the ways I think a person get over it, for me, it's like, if right now you're angry, you're mad, and you say, okay, I'm sick of this, I'm tired of this, or whatever. And then if you have the presence of mind to say, but if I didn't go on with it, how would I feel then?
Correct.
What would I feel if I gave in to a momentary anger? How would I feel tomorrow or next week? And you examine that. And I think when you do that, when people do that, that's one of the ways. It probably wouldn't be for everybody, but for a lot of people, that would be one of the ways that you would guide, because then you realize, now I'm dealing with an emotional experience. Now I'm not dealing with what's always there, what's been established always.
And I think also, you have to be careful who you talk to or listen to.
That's good.
Because when you start pulling in different people into your innermost feelings, and they start giving you their opinion of what I wouldn't do or what I wouldn't take, then you run into some danger, because now they're influencing or can influence how you think or feel about your husband or your wife.
Yeah. Relationships, especially the relationship between a husband and a wife, is complicated because you are going to, this is something we talked about last month, we are going to navigate some things together. We're going to navigate some storms. We're going to have some great times. We're going to have some triumphs together. We're also going to have some lows. So, let's just name a few of the lows that you've had to navigate in 42 years of marriage. So when you talk about, like, you can't just talk with any and everybody. When you talk about, yes, there have been moments, but I had to take a step back and think, let's talk about some of those valleys, but let's also talk about some of those triumphs too. But let's start with, what are some of the valleys that you've walked through? You talked about racism earlier, talked about disappointment. What else could you just share with us from 42 years?
I would say we had deaths, and my brother, or Walter's brother-in-law, we've had other like family members, and those things you really can really tear at you, and we were able to lean on one another to comfort each other during those times. We've had job losses,
job loss, health challenges,
health challenges.
We've had a lot of things. A lot of things been directly related to work for me.
Work,
because I had to do a lot of different things at work and put up with a lot of different things at work because I had a family. And so that can be a valley that you have to go through. You can, there are things you deal with because you have a family. A lot of people, when they have to deal with something, I mean, I've had to deal with hearing racist remarks, pictures on the wall in the office because I was the only Black one there. caricatures of Black people with buck teeth and nappy hair and stuff like that. Never will forget one they had, we had, my next position was as a contract administrator, which we call coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
And I never will forget the bulletin board in the hallway of the office. Somebody had a picture put up of their caricature of a Black person with nappy hair and all that stuff. And the caption read, I can quote it perfectly to this day.
Wow.
The caption read, last week I could spell coordinator. Now I are one.
Wow.
And it's things like that that you dealt with. There were times I had to, I got to the point that me and my boss was in shouting matches in the office because there were some things I had decided I got to challenge you on. And there was things that I thought that I might lose my job on. I said that to say this. You can do things like that. And as a man, and as most men, you want to do things for your family. And you say, it's my job to do this for my family. And maybe you don't say anything to anybody about it.
Wow, you carry
deal
that.
with it yourself.
Wow.
And there was a lot of things I didn't say that I dealt with myself. And you think at the time that you handling it great, but a lot of times you're not. It's affecting you, and it might affect the way you respond to your spouse or your children or any of that stuff. You don't think it at the time, but as you look back on it, a lot of times you think, maybe I reacted this way because I thought, well, if I didn't have to worry about nobody else, I wouldn't have to take this. I could walk away. And that can make you respond differently. The only thing that helps you through things like that is the reason some people may not make it because they don't go off by themselves and pray and cry out to God to help me, to give me strength, to let me do things the right way. And then God brings you through that. But those are things that can happen to you that affect those around you. Sometimes you don't even know they're affecting those around you.
Wow. That was so good. There was just so much in that, you know, just in terms of what you carried as a husband, as a father. Trey does Man Cave for men only, and he's created this this environment where men can share and be transparent and encourage one another because they are carrying stuff. And sometimes, you know, we as the wife, we don't know the fullness of what they're carrying or what they feel. What they're experiencing at work that may have triggered something or impacts them. And, you know, it truly is Trey going to God or dad going to God or other husbands just going to God to get what they need at that point and dealing with that. So thank you for being transparent and sharing that because that's real stuff. That is real stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, so we talked about some lows, we talked about some valleys, some things you've navigated, and they haven't even, let me tell you, they're being very quiet and they have walked through some serious stuff, but they're still standing. So I truly give God glory. I truly give God praise for your lives and for who you are in the kingdom of God and for what you stand for, because we do talk about faith, but it's one thing to talk about faith and it's a whole other thing to live it out and to allow God to blossom and walk through it, not only as an individual, but with the spouse.
So now, what are some victories? Some things that, you know, some great things. I see you guys smiling. What
smiling,
great,
42 years.
You got just coming to mind, just right off the top of your head.
Well, me, of course.
Of course.
You know what? Those are great victories.
Oh, yes.
Those are great victories. If you got children to see certain things happen, great victories. There are things that kids may not even know or remember. For instance, I talked about how those are victories. Graduation from high school was a victory, graduation from college, all those kinds of things for you and for Courtney. Those are victories, but there are other things that was just great things for us. And you know, I can remember getting a new job. That was a great victory
Yeah.
in our life. I can going to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Just us doing things like that.
Yeah, Mark.
Those were victories. To
Yeah.
some people, they might seem like minor things, but to us, they were
Absolutely.
They were big things. The first
yeah.
time we got a house, that was huge.
Yes.
That was huge when we did that.
Well, and you know what? I just want to just say something, because there are some victories that you've experienced that if you had thrown in the towel in year 3 or 4, you would not have experienced.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing with couples
Yeah.
who have, you know, we're in this microwave society that want things instantly.
Yeah.
That, you know, many of us need to learn, you know, really need to learn. And so thank you for sharing that, the victories, even after the early years of marriage.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know, some people, and you know, I never heard anybody talk about this, but it was something that I gave thought to, and was, what is it that comes first? It's like the chicken or the egg. What's first, the chicken or the egg? And I thought about this. I don't even remember the first time I thought about this, but it had to be years ago, because I wanted to put it in a, and when I was thinking of, because I used to write stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I was putting it down. And I was thinking, what comes first? Is it love or is it commitment? Do you love because you have decided to be committed? Or do you only commit yourself because you love? I don't know which one comes first, but I think they both have to be there.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you commit yourself to somebody because you love them, or you love somebody because you commit yourself to them. But both things have to be there. And I've thought about that a bunch of times. Which ones come? I've never come up with an answer as to which comes first.
Wow. Well, that's
Really
awesome.
good.
Well, we could spend so much more time talking with you. You've given us such great nuggets and things to think about. And it's
Absolutely.
obvious that you truly are a resilient couple. You really epitomize resilient love. And we thank God for you taking time to share your story and a little bit, just a
Absolutely.
snippet, because we didn't get to
We
go
appreciate it.
deep in, just a snippet of your love journey. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Did you have any other questions or anything?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Yes.
Great.
Is there any parting wisdom or anything else either of you would like to share, or both would like to share about with our couples?
I think I can only say one thing: put God first.
Amen.
If you put God first, and that means you're going to put the other person first. And I would say to anybody that's married or getting married, forget about yourself and concentrate on the other person. If it works right, if it happens the way it's supposed to, you won't have to worry about yourself, because they'll do the same thing. They'll worry about you, and they'll take care of you because you're taking care of them.
That's good. 42
Great.
years of marriage,
Yeah.
you guys. They're still dating. If it wasn't for this darn COVID, they'd be out at the Cheesecake Factory getting their grill on. But soon they'll both be vaccinated. They have a rich legacy, 2 daughters, college graduates, grandchildren, a rich legacy. And it all started with them giving God a yes, giving each other a yes over 42 years ago, and they're still going. So we praise God for your marriage. We love you both.
Thank you for your love story.
Thank you.
We
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having us.
Yep.